Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Luca's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my. Listen, Luca Nation, it is our Monday episode, our StarStock episode. And, we're happy to bring you another fun one this Monday. We got some data from the guys over at StarStock. We had a crazy weekend of sports. A lot of football, a lot of cool storylines, a lot of awesome, basketball games. And, we'll talk about a whole bunch of different storylines here. One of them that I want to get into is, the COVID cancellations, Andrew. I mean, we're seeing a lot of games getting canceled because of COVID. And I wonder whether or not you think that has any impact on strategies, you name it, in the StarStock world. Has it impacted what you're doing at all?
I think the COVID cancellations are going to sweep through the NBA, and then the tail end of the season is going to be kind of smooth sailing. One, we knew that COVID's a little bit harder in the winter, and it's my assumption. I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but that once it kind of goes through your team and it hits 7, 8, 10 guys, you should be smooth sailing from here on out. So, I mean, rightfully so. We've seen a little bit kind of a pause when it comes to NBA cards being traded on StarStock because there's a lot of uncertainty, and you don't want to buy a card pre-game and have that card in your collection, but the game postponed because It's not even that you're even losing money on that player necessarily. It's just that you can't use that liquidity elsewhere to buy the guy that is playing. So that's one. I'm impressed by the Knicks roster. I'm really impressed by that team because they don't have a star talent. Julius Randle's their best player, but that's a team with Obi coming back, with Quigley. I always butcher his name, but I think
Emmanuel Quigley. Yep.
That's really dynamic. They have 8, 9 guys that could put up points, that could get buckets, that could play make. That's an interesting team. And Tom Thibodeau always is good with getting the most out of his players through discipline, I feel like. So that Knicks team is really interesting. And I'm looking at Obi Toppin and Quigley cards for the remainder of the year.
See, Quigley doesn't have one. I mean, obviously, you look at him. Quigley had an autograph in Prism Draft, but I don't even think he has a base card. It's weird. He has some like contenders autos and stuff like that also, but I don't think Quigley has a draft base. I opened a bunch of boxes of Prism Draft myself. I actually got an autograph. I had no idea who he even was, so I still have it. I have the autograph here, but I went looking. Because Quigley had a couple good games in the beginning, like preseason and whatnot. I'm like, where's this card? I don't think he even has a draft base. But I think you're right. I think you're right about the Knicks. I mean, Randle always gets his points. He always fills up the stat sheet. But, it seems like the second high is always somebody else. You know what I mean? Whether it's Knox one night or whether it's Mitchell Robinson filling up the stat sheet, or now Toppin comes back and scored, 12 points in 17 minutes or something. Very efficient game for him. And they really, look, Kemba got hurt. He was coming back. They were trying to figure that out. And, but they made the Celtics look pretty pedestrian in the last game.
They did. Yes, they did. I'm excited for today's slate of games. I want to ask you, it doesn't seem like StarStock has emerged as the player for higher end cards like Kevin Durant or James Harden or Luka. There's some sales, but not nearly the volume. But there's a huge game on deck today. A really big game. Bucks versus the Nets in Brooklyn. Let's talk about that because James Harden went through the fastest weight loss transformation, I think, in history, and the internet is undefeated. Like, it's crazy how quickly the internet captures that. What do you think about the Nets? You saw one game, Harden put up a triple-double. Who do you have taking this game? Just really simply. You think the Nets win, or do you think the Bucks win?
I think the Bucks win. I think the Nets are not as good as they looked the other night. I think, Harden came out. There was a whole bunch of emotion, a whole bunch of energy. There's still a lot of, hey, where is Kyrie, backdrop. But here's why I think the Bucks win. You tell me, it comes down to one question. Who is stopping Giannis for the Nets? Especially after DeAndre Jordan uses all 6 of his fouls by the second quarter. Nobody. The answer is nobody. They no longer have Jared Allen in there. They can't throw. Taurean Prince isn't huge, but they can't throw his fouls at him. They don't have the depth in the middle. And if I'm the Bucks, I go in there and I just I have Giannis. Giannis could have a 40-15 game today.
You think a 40 and 15 game wins it for the Bucks though?
Yes,
because you have 2 guys on the other side that could put up 40 and 15 games easy as well.
Yep. Yeah. But I think the Bucks. Listen, the Bucks improved themselves a little bit over the offseason, and they play really good defense. You know what I mean? It's one thing to score the way that Harden and Durant do against middle of the road or bad NBA teams, but the Bucks they're a top end defensive unit. They play good defense. They play good interior defense. They play good team basketball. They rotate. And listen, there's no way to stop Durant and Harden from scoring. They're two of the most prolific scorers in NBA history. They're going to get their points. But after they get their 25, 30, or 35 each, who else is scoring? Who else is playing? Who else is going to be there in the end of the game when you need a defensive stop? It's not like Durant and Harden are going to be playing defense. So I just think when it comes down to it, it's the Bucks.
I'm calling the Nets in a blowout. I think the Nets put up 130, 135 today. And I think it's really hard for...
You could be right? Because, listen, the first two games the Nets came out of the season, they won both games by 25 points, right? And then they kind of took a break. And then Harden comes in and it's these guys, they say, all right, we're going to play now. We're going to show the world that this can work because there's so many talking heads saying Kyrie should retire. There's so many talking heads saying this is a subtraction by addition by adding Harden in there, right? So, you could see them sitting down saying, we got to put our best game where for the Bucks, it's just another game. What do they care? So I guess, you could definitely be right. I mean, because ultimately in the grand scheme of things, I view this as a potential Eastern Conference championship matchup. And while the Nets could put a blowout performance in the books today, if they face each other in a 7-game series, I'm picking the Bucks. So,
me too. But I think the first few games of the Nets, and this is what I'd be on the lookout for, I think they know they're not going to be able to compete on the defensive end. So they're going to be all guns a-blazing to outscore the other team. And that's good when you have fresh legs and you're motivated. But sometimes your shot doesn't fall. And that's what's going to be their kryptonite is how good their defense is in the playoffs. But I think this game, I think Harden and Durant put up 70 to 80 themselves. Now, something to look out for. I don't know if you guys saw this quote from Spencer Dinwiddie, but he said Nicholas Claxton is actually the second most talented player on that Nets team. And his cards, you might want to take a look at them because we know that roster is a little bit depleted in terms of depth. And Nicholas Claxton might get some time later on in the season, or maybe even he'll start getting time now. And I always trust when players speak out about other young players and say, yo, this guy's talented. This guy's got it. They said that about Tyler Hero. That was one example. So take a look at Nicholas Claxton. Watch some of his highlights. Let's dig into the data, Cage. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's you couldn't have had a better segue into that, can you? But go ahead, man. I mean, Nick Claxton is obviously there's a reason why you bring up that Dinwiddie story. And before you get into the data, really quick, what it reminds me of, although Dinwiddie is not going to be confused with LeBron James. Remember when LeBron mentioned THT? And he had a couple good games, leading up into the season, and all of a sudden his cards exploded. Same kind of thing, right? When your peers are saying that you're a legit player, when your peers are saying that you can play, then it usually has some sort of an impact on your cards. So go ahead, jump into the data. It seems like a good place to get into the top 5, sales, right?
That's right. Give me 1 second, pulling it up here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have it in front of me, so I'll read it, right? So StarStock gives us, some data to go through, for the week here, and they give us the top 5 players by sales value and by sales count. And wouldn't you know it, that in the top 5 players by sales, number 4 on the list is Nick Claxton. They're showing nearly 500 of his cards were purchased last week, and that's there's a lot of net money there. I mean, the Nets are looking good. There's a lot of net team talk. There's a lot of Nets in the news. So, I guess it shouldn't surprise anybody. But, yeah, that Dinwiddie, call out there saying that this is a guy who's going to be, somebody to look out for. He's talented. There's a reason why those cards are probably making a list where there's no way if you would have told me, hey, listen, Cage, I want you to tell me who the top 5 people being bought in the NBA are, I would put Nick Claxton in that list. No way.
Mm-hmm. What was surprising was the index was down 1.1% over the last week, but there was 3 top performers that I'm really surprised by. OG, Laurie Marketing, and SGA were top performers. 22% over the last week, 20%, and 15%. And I don't think any of those 3 guys are worthy of being top performers. I think SGA, I don't know if you've watched him this season. It's not that he's bad. He's a very good player, but I think he's already hit his ceiling. I don't see what's going to make his game that much better. He's not really quick. He's not super athletic.
and I think SGA is capped out. Lauri Markkanen, I don't know. What do you think about that Bulls team? They're super.
So that was just a matter of him coming back, right? He hadn't been playing for a while, so there was a little bit of a run up in him coming back, and he had a really good game in his first game back. The Bulls seems weird, man. The Bulls seems very, very weird because you've had me talk about, hey, Kobe White. He was first week of the season he was on the down list, right? He was on the underperformers list, and then the second week of the season he was on the high list. And I actually said, hey, go buy this guy. He's on the up list, and he moved on to the down list. And now he's on the up list again. And I think he'll be back on the down list. I think he scored 0 points. The Bulls are a weird team, right? Like LaVine can score 40, then Markkanen can score 30. Then, Otto Porter could score 20. And, anyone can lead that team in points. Kobe White could lead it. I mean, it's in and game out. It's weird. It's like they don't really have an identity. It's an odd thing. It's almost like the Hawks, which, by the way, is, a great lead in, on the reason why that the index is down slightly is because even though you saw rises from guys like OG and SGA, you see people who other people were chasing who were on the upswing now on the downswing, like Darius Baisley and, more importantly, DeAndre Hunter. Because the Hawks team is another one like that, right? Where on any given night, Cam Reddish could fill the buckets. DeAndre Hunter is filling the bucket. John Collins could be leading them. Trae Young could either be their lowest scorer with 4, or you come back in his next game, like we talked about, and score 26 and lead the team, which is exactly what happened when we talked about Trae. So it's odd, right? What we're seeing is a lot of chase. And so Lauri Markkanen is up, and lucky for him, when he came back from his injury, he scored 27 points or whatever the hell he had. He had a really good game first came back. But if this week he goes out there and LaVine scores and Kobe White scores and Markkanen is only dropping 10 or 8 points a game, or he's not playing well, then next week he'll be on the decrease list because people are chasing him.
It's so interesting that how StarStock works. It's interesting that guys like LaVine don't get much love, right? Because they're from 14, and their time has. So they're starting to invest in, Kobe White or Markkanen, where LaVine is the best player on that team, right? And he's the most prolific scorer.
I'll tell you what I like about StarStock, right? And this might not be a huge ringing endorsement, but what's different about it, right? It's not a longevity play, at least right now. I mean, it'll grow into it, but right now, what people are doing on StarStock, at least what I think is, they're looking for the next guy. You know how one of the cool things in the hobby is, you hold up that picture, that card of somebody who was nobody last year. Keldon Johnson is a great example, right? And you go on Instagram after a week or two into the season when Keldon Johnson is averaging 20-something points and no one even knew who he was, and you show your stash of Keldon Johnson cards and say, I had him last year. I was buying it for $2 when everybody else was focusing on, Ja and SGA and whatever. I was in the bargain bin buying Keldon Johnson. That is to me what StarStock is about. People trying to buy stuff before the person explodes. It's almost like daily. It's trying to find those daily fantasy sleepers, trying to find those guys who you can put in your lineup for less money and they're going to overperform, and then you move that card, which is why I think something like a Prism Draft Basketball gets so much attention on StarStock. Even though if you look at last year's Prism Draft Basketball, no one's really buying 2019 Prism Draft Basketball. I mean, if we're being honest about it, I'll throw it out there. I have a bunch of Prism Draft Basketball in StarStock, but I hope to not have any of it in March. So, where people are buying Prism Draft Basketball right now, it's not because they're planning on holding it and giving it to their kids. It's because they're basically day trading it. StarStock allows you to do that.
Luca Nation, I want to take a quick pause here. So what we did, Cage and I, we started the show, and our goal is to add value to you guys. Be in the weeds, learn platforms, learn the market, and bring you guys strategies that make money. And today we have a special guest for you guys. He's someone that reached out to us. He said, when you guys need a veteran StarStock guy, give me a call, give me a buzz. And you guys might have seen his articles. He's an analyst. He's a very intelligent writer, blogger. And his name is Dan from Serbia Sports Cards. And he's been on StarStock since early 2020. And we wanted to bring him on and have a conversation with him about what can our Luca Nation implement? What has he learned from doing hundreds and hundreds of sales on StarStock? that can, other people can implement and put some money in their pocket. So, Dan, if your audio's working well, I'd want to introduce you to our community, and I'm really appreciative that you were able to take the time this morning to hop on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Little technical difficulty, not so good with the technology, but okay with the cards, I guess.
That's okay. Cards are greater than technology. Jordan, if you see that, meme it, please. So, Dan, what got you into StarStock? Like, how did you initially find it?
So Fantasy Points is a fantasy football site. They reached out to me about adding sports cards, analysis to their betting, because they saw the opportunity, the way that Lamar Jackson grew last year. They saw an opportunity in that, thought it would be something nice to add to the subscribers. So when they asked me to pitch their idea, it was right around the time that StarStock was starting. At the time, they had like 50,000 cards, but their model just seemed to fit what I was trying to do, what I thought would be a good thing for them to do with their site, with their card analytics. So, I pitched them on that, and then once that happened, once we started using their graphs and everything, like I was on there all the time and started seeing all the trends and all that jazz. And then that got me to send my first order, which was small, maybe 200 cards. And it just grew from there.
I love it. And let's open up with just a quick question. I was looking at, guys, and if you don't follow Dan, go on Serbia Sports Cards at Serbia Sports on Serbia's Sports on Twitter. Dan is hilarious. He's got like a little bit of a dry sense of humor. He's not scared to clap back, but it's full of knowledge. And one of the questions he had when he was recording his podcast about StarStock, people asked, so like, what's it all about? Is it hard to use? Can a monkey do it? I need answers. So Dan, could you give us your answer to that? Is it hard to use? Can a monkey do it?
A monkey could do it. It's got to be slightly intelligent.
And make money?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Let's go.
It just depends on your approach at it. So when I started writing for StarStock and really paying attention to all the sales and everything, one thing I noticed was at the time there wasn't a big football, a lot of cards in their vault for football. So around that same time, I discovered sportlots.com. It's a site mainly for building sets, but a lot of people price their cards at 18 cents. And to get as many uploaded at once, they just price everything at 18 cents and move on to the next one. And a lot of those cards are rookie cards. So I would go in there, find any rookie cards I could of guys in the NFL for 18 cents, have them ship them to me, and then I would just in turn ship that to StarStock. And once basketball started blowing up again, I did the same thing with basketball. And that's pretty much been my model ever since, is using the StarStock offer price. They have the sale price, the last sold price, and then there's the highest offer. So if you can use that to your advantage, it can be pretty lucrative.
So go through that again, Dan. So you're basically using the offer price, which is on there, as what you can sell.
Basically as a price guide, you know what I mean? So I have an idea that I'm going to be able to get that. And a lot of it, the way that the processing is now, I think they say 3 to 4 weeks it's going to take for the card to get in.
Yep.
So obviously, if you're buying at a trend like a Keldon Johnson, although I don't think he's going to be dropping anytime soon, but somebody that's high, you want to tread lightly on something like that, because it's not going to get there in time to capitalize on that peak.
All right. So I mean, it's an interesting little strategy. So guys, for StarStock noobs, for StarStock people who are getting into this and want to get a little more in the weeds, on the listing, when you click on somebody, you got the different categories, the A, the B, the C. There's also a sale price. There's also an offer price, right? So it tells you kind of like what the last one sold for, and it tells you how many of them are for sale. There's a way to make an offer on a card. So if somebody's selling a card for $10, you're able to go in and make an offer, 5 cents, 10 cents, $1, $4. And the sellers who own that card can accept your offer if they want to drop their sale price down. But basically, what Dan is telling you is that's telling you like the baseline of the price for the card. So he's looking and saying, all right, if I can find a card that has offers at $2, and you can see how many offers there are, by the way. So you'd see if just one person is putting a $2 offer, or if there's 10 $2 offers or 20 $2 offers. All right, so if I know that this card, once I get it in my StarStock, I can get at least $2 for it, and he can go and find it somewhere else, whether on eBay or on a Facebook group, Macari, in bulk at $1 a card, then that's a card he knows he can make money on. Obviously, there's a timing issue now with getting the card in, getting the card to StarStock, getting it scanned in. But yeah, I mean that's the arbitrage play that you're talking about, right, Dan?
Yep, that's exactly it. But yeah, like you said, there's it shows you how many offers there are. So there might be one offer for $5, so it's showing the highest offer is $5, and then the next highest offer might only be a quarter or 10 cents or whatever. So if there's 50 offers, you want to click on the offer to make sure there's a lot in that area. So you're not buying a card, sending it there. Someone already took that offer by the time it got there, and now, that deal doesn't look so good anymore. But at the same time, you can just let it sit there. It's not like you have to capitalize on that and that's it. And that's the thing too. A good thing to do is go in and buy rookies of this year, last year, the year before, and right now is what I'm doing in basketball. The lower end guys, because might not be this year, but maybe next preseason they'll have a 10-point game, and people will be running out to buy their cards. So if you can get that stuff for under 50 cents a piece, a quarter a piece, 10 cents, whatever it is, that's a buy for me. Because then you just let it sit there, and hopefully you can capitalize on that down the road.
Dan, do you remember your starting bankroll? So I love what you said about, going and buying off, eBay or other sites and sending those cards to StarStock to kind of build up your bankroll that way. Do you remember your initial bankroll when you first started?
I actually didn't put any money in to start. The money I started using on there was from my first order.
I love that. And Cage, I think on our initial episode, that's something you mentioned as well, right? Like going to buy James Wiseman cards off of eBay and then sending them to StarStock to kind of fulfill your balance. Dan, you've been on StarStock a little longer than us. What do you make, just in brevity of the delays that they're having with logging cards in right now? Is this something that's a big deal? Is it something that just it'll pass? How do you view that?
I personally think it's going to pass. I think they just got an influx that they didn't. They saw it coming, but it's been growing very, very fast. If you watch, it'll be like I said, when I started on Fantasy Points, it was like 50 to 75,000, and they were talking about maybe they'll hit 100,000 by the end of the week, and then once they hit 100,000, it was like 200,000 the next week, and it's been growing very fast. So,
well, when you have two influencers like Serbia Sports Cards and Luka Tiger LeBron teaming up and just flooding them with traffic,
right?
I think it's a good problem to have, Dan.
It really is, but I honestly think that they're going to be smart about it and know that they need to keep that quick turnaround time. So they'll hire. And I saw, a couple of weeks ago, they were hiring more people. But I don't know exactly what are they hiring people to grade and process or what it is. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but yeah, I think they'll take care of that problem.
I think so as well. Let's shift gears. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on baseball, right? So right now, most people are out of the football market with NFL kind of coming to the tail end of the season. There's some buys, some sells, but not as much. NBA is in full bloom, but we were just talking with Cage about, the COVID hitting teams, and there wasn't as many transactions this weekend on StarStock. How are you gearing up for baseball, if at all?
I have my last order that I sent was I do a lot well, not anymore, but I used to break a lot of boxes, before all the prices got crazy. But Bowman and Topps flagship were pretty much what I would always open every year. So my first order was 200. My second order, I kind of picked through my rookie boxes and picked out like guys that I knew who they were, stuff that I thought would sell. That was probably about 2,000 cards. And then when I started selling through that, I didn't expect some of the stuff to sell that sold. Like I said, that lower end stuff, the guys that are almost commons are stuff that surprisingly sells on there. I guess people are just trying to get in low, that penny stock stuff. But once I saw that stuff was moving, I went through my cards again and got everything. Anything that was first Bowman, anything that was, Topps rookie, everything. Even if they were commons, didn't matter. Capitalizing on how can you not send everything there when you don't have to pay anything? And you don't have to worry about shipping anything when it sells. Like that stuff's probably just going to be sitting in a box in your house somewhere, just collecting dust. So that last order that I sent was all my first Bowmans and stuff. I have bought some baseball, not as much yet, but baseball is definitely heating up. In fact, I would say baseball is selling better for me right now than basketball.
So let's do this. You strike me, Dan. You have kind of like an offensive coordinator vibe to you, and maybe we can create like a 1, 2, 3 playbook for people. Whether they're just starting out on StarStock or they've been on it for 1 or 2 weeks. And I want to give you the first play, but you tell me if this is something that you would keep. Number 1 play on StarStock is to buy cards off of StarStock and send them as the supply side and send them to StarStock, and that's how you fill a lot of your balance, your initial balance to work with. You agree with that being number 1?
Yep.
What would you say 2 and 3 are from there? What were your next moves after, they got those cards, they processed them, and you listed them for sale?
So I started using some of the money to buy some stuff because at that point it was football season, and I'm, like I said, on there all the time and looking at all the prices. So one of the parts of my articles for fantasy points would be picking, buy low guys, or one of the parts was balling on a budget, which is me finding cards that are under $2 that I think have room to grow. So, I was buying little stuff, but I really don't. I don't buy big stuff. I'm not a guy that likes to take a lot of risk. I'm more of a buy low, sell high, hopefully kind of guy. But so that's what I was doing, was mainly buying those $1, $2 guys. Miles Gaskin was the guy I was buying a lot of. And then there's, just random guys that I was buying for hopefully next year, like an Auden Tate. I really like Auden Tate.
I love it. And what about an NBA? What was your best investment? What was one that didn't work out so well?
Keldon Johnson was big. DeAndre Hunter was big. And that's the thing. Like I said, you buy those lower tier guys, they're low tier this year, but in 2-3 years, they could have a breakout season.
And I think what we're missing here is, people are going to listen to this and say, okay, so he called it right? He got DeAndre Hunter and he got Keldon Johnson. But if you really listen to what Dan's telling you, is he didn't just pick Keldon Johnson and DeAndre Hunter. He bought basically a mutual fund of rookie cards, right? So you didn't just buy those guys, right? You probably also bought, I'm trying to think of other low end guys from that year. Jordan Bone, who went up, and
Jordan Poole,
Jordan Poole, and
Goga.
I'm just trying Goga Batazzi. These guys who were out there who are in the Prism draft class last year. I know because I just kind of stacked up all these Jackson Hayes and the guys who came in packs, and you were like, oh man, that's not. I wanted a Ja. I didn't want this guy. I didn't want Chuma Okiti or but you loaded them all up. And Keldon Johnson was not one that people were pulling out of packs last year going, wow, look, I got a Ja Morant. People weren't flexing those cards. So you're probably able to buy those cheap on the various sites that you have. They're not, your account going into the NBA season this year wasn't just filled with DeAndre Hunter and Keldon Johnson. You weren't just gambling on those two. You were casting a wide net, is what they say, right? And you're gonna catch something when you do that. And your account probably still has Goga in it. And maybe something happens and he's the next Keldon Johnson. And if it's not this year, maybe it's next year. And I think that's what you're trying to say. So strategy going forward, are you doing the same thing with this year's stuff? Are you going to be breaking product? Are you going to be waiting for people to break product and list the stuff on eBay or Facebook and that kind of stuff? Look for those lower end rookies, trying to scoop them up and add those to your StarStock account. What are we doing going forward?
Before there was StarStock, one thing that I would always do every year is guys would, Prism basketball was always, since like 2016, was always like a thing for, even if you collected baseball, you would go into Walmart and try and buy all the Prism, hoping for a Ben Simmons that year, or Tatum, or whoever the big guy was. And then when you didn't get that, they would sell off all the other stuff as whatever, just to get rid of it. So that's the play, is to go on Facebook, find those groups, and be a shark in the water, smell blood, buy everything, buy those lots, $10 for, there might be 8 random rookies in it, or 15 rookies, and one of them being, someone decent. That's the way to go, is buy up everybody else's stuff. Don't buy wax unless you can find it at retail. Because what's Prism going to be this year? $2,000-$3,000 a box?
More.
Yeah,
More.
it's going to be insane. And even if you don't find retail, you're not going to be able to buy that on the secondary under $200 a blaster.
So a lot of lessons here from Dan, right? So 2 parts. Number one, he's not playing in the John Morant, LaMelo Ball, area. That's not where but he's making money, right? So he's not going to be playing in that Class A stock. No Anthony Edwards, no LaMelo, no Halliburton. Even he's looking for the guys who are breaking those boxes of $4,000. They got their LaMelo, they're keeping it. Now they want to try to get as much money back as they can. People are putting lots together, breakers. You go on eBay and it's like, here's the, a lot of 50 rookies who else are there. So that's lesson number one. There are more than one ways to make money here, right? It's not just LaMelo or bust. You can make money with the rest of them. But the second and more subtle lesson that we're getting out of Dan here is a little bit of patience. Right. And I have to learn this myself, because I load up, 101 cards into StarStock, and I'm like, oh, wow, I got 6 of them left. Let me just take whatever offers out there. Oh, I got a Wiseman B, and the last one sold for $8. And the last one, there's an offer of 28 cents. I just better take that offer. Let me take that 28-cent offer, which is ridiculous, and no one should ever do that. But I'm considering it, because I'm like, I got to get something for this, right? Don't do that, right? Because, what Dan is teaching you is that this year's dollar card can turn into next year's $40 card. Guy just needs a little bit of an opportunity. So, there's no cost to you to keep it in your StarStock account. And look, he wasn't buying Keldon Johnson last week or 2 weeks ago. These are Keldon Johnson cards he was buying last year. And they've now just sat in his account and turned into real commodities. So 2 things, guys. There's many ways to play those box breaks, and it's not just LaMelo or nothing. And then number 2, of course, be patient with your stuff, because you never know. Something you have in there might turn into something real valuable.
Happens a lot. You'd be surprised how many guys, if you're new to cards, how many guys have been a common out of the box, and now, like Bam Adebayo, he was nothing.
Siakam.
Siakam. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So many guys that I bought in for nothing and just, sat on. And that's why StarStock is so great, because, if StarStock wasn't around, I would have to go through my box, pick them out, put them on eBay, and then, hopefully that guy doesn't, something happens that he doesn't play anymore. It was just one game that he got extra minutes. For example, Chad Henne, he didn't have any cards on StarStock. Now, when Pat Mahomes clears concussion protocol, how many of those Chad Hennes that were bought on eBay last night are going to get returned?
All of them.
Dude, a PSA 10 last night, a PSA 10 Chrome, Chad Henne, $125. Yep. What are we doing? It's just, I can't.
Well, listen, people are gambling, right? And that person who bought it for 125, Chad Henne, he looked decent with that throw to Kelsey, and then that interception in the end zone was pretty terrible. But
right.
Like that person who bought that card, like, Henne looked like he was doing all right. He came in, he won the game. You never know what's gonna happen with Mahomes. It's a gamble, and maybe he gets a shot next year. Maybe he goes somewhere else, and that card's a $250 card. You never know what somebody's thinking, but you're right. I mean, you would imagine that card's probably gonna get returned, but I love it, and think about it, guys. It's one of the questions we get into the NBA season every year when we do an NBA preview. right? Everybody wants to know awards. Give us an award preview. And Andrew says, Luka's going to be the MVP. But, one of the questions we always get, who's going to be the MIP? Who's going to be the most improved player? And that's one of those hotly contested awards every year because it's like, well, who should win it? Is it Brandon Ingram this year? Did Devontae Graham really deserve more consideration? Is it Siakam? Is it Bam? And they have that award. They should call it the StarStock Patience Award. Because basically what it is if you're playing the right way, the way Dan is telling you he's played it, these are guys who came out of nowhere. They came out of someone else's bargain bin. And they turned into a legitimate player, one of the more improved players, and that is a StarStock strategy, right? It's if it's in your account when that person has that opportunity to play and they capitalize on it, so can you.
That's definitely the play. And a thing to keep in mind if you do send cards there, my strategy, like for Prism stuff, even if the guy's selling for a quarter right now or 50 cents or whatever, I'm still not pricing a card that's Prism under $5. Like it just doesn't make sense.
So, guys, I love this because, Andrew, I'll let you ask. I'm just going to wrap this up with, with Dan. I'll let you ask another question. If you haven't, let Dan go. But I've been preaching about StarStock as the day trading platform, the daily fantasy platform, the way to get in there and, look at who's playing today. And look, Obi Toppin's back from injury. Get your Obi Toppin cards. And then, if he has a great game, sell them. Buy and sell quick, right? Dan is actually, opening your eyes now, and mine definitely, to a different way of playing this. Exactly the opposite way of playing the daily fan. He's playing a dynasty league. He's stashing in those late round picks in a fantasy league for who might come next year. Those penny stocks that he's going to hang on to that turn into $1, $2, $3, or $10 down the road. So, it's definitely a cool, dichotomy there. It's definitely a cool difference because it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, buy it this morning and sell it this evening. Your StarStock account can be a way to stash your bargain bin. You got them in the basement, you open up a bunch of boxes, throw them all in there. I can tell you, Dan, I sent in some Goga Batazzi cards just because I didn't want them in my house anymore.
No, and okay, just really well said. That's exactly what I wanted to wrap with. So let's say you guys had some John Wall cards in your collection, right? More than likely, you're not going to get John Wall cards graded. So if you were Dan, you would send those John Wall cards at some point last year, and you would house them at StarStock. So Woj released this tweet just a few days ago. The Rockets are planning to keep Harden away until a trade is done. Dan smartly retweets, I hope you guys got some John Walls ready to sell. And it's such a subtle piece of advice, but I think it's a really good way to cap and wrap this conversation. That card, that John Wall card, that bargain bin card was already sitting at StarStock. And then what does Dan do? He waits for a piece of news, a little hype, and uses that to sell. And I think that's super subtle, but there's a ton of money to be made with that strategy. Do you agree, Dan? And do you want to say any final words before we wrap here?
Well, I didn't have any John Wall currently at the StarStock, unfortunately. But I do have some on the way, some of his Donruss rookies. But yeah.
So he's emailing them every day. Come on, scan in my John Walls. Come on, get my John Walls in there.
Please. Yeah. I bought him preseason, just as on a hunch. Actually, it was when he right after that layup, his first game, he had a little drive to the hole. I'm like, I got to buy John Wall. But yeah. So
and you got them off eBay? I mean, I couldn't imagine they're more than $1 a piece, right?
Yeah, I got, they were, I think, $5. I got a lot of 5 and then a lot of 8 2012 Prism, which unfortunately I can't send to StarStock, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. But yeah, the best thing to do is use those best offer, pay attention to those, and capitalize on just being able to buy from one platform and send it there. And you don't even have to worry about letting it sit. It's not, there's no speculation. It's just moving from point A to point B. It's as simple as that.
Dan, where can people find you?
Twitter. That's where I do most of my time at Serbia Sports. I have a blog, website at serbiasportscard.com. And there's a pod that I started, Serbia Sports Cards Daily. That's about it. Fantasy Points, fantasypoints.com. If you're into fantasy sports, fantasy football specifically, Serbia 10 will get you 10% off your membership, and it's loaded with, some of the top guys in the fantasy football world.
Love it. Thanks, Dan. We appreciate you stopping in. I mean, you definitely opened my eyes up to a different way of playing it. I've been just doing like daily on it, and it's definitely an interesting thing. Also, the guys. So not only send your cards in and kind of sit on them, but also that best offer strategy. That's a cool little piece of information that's right there in front of you on StarStock. And for some of the cards, a guy had a great game last week. It's not as valuable, but for people who are, steady and you want to see what you can get for a card and then try to find it somewhere else cheaper, it's a pretty good strategy. I like it. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
All right, Luca Nation. What we wanted to do there, and guys, feel free to leave us comments or tag, someone else who's been on StarStock that you'd want us to bring on and have a quick conversation with. But our goal isn't just so that you guys hear, my voice and Cage's voice here. We want to bring different guys on who've been on StarStock, who, have made money, and they could share a strategy or perspective that we might not have. And that was our goal with Serbia Sports. So we hope you guys enjoy that segment. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Listen to this guy. I like it, man. It's like Walter Cronkite's idiot nephew. So here's the deal, right? So, I mean, we get this good data, right? Anything in the data that StarStock provided jump out to you? Anything you want to discuss?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise, but I'm going to read the top 5 players by sales value.
Yep.
It's surprising if you look at this list, who's going to be number 1. I'm going to start from 5. Number 5 was LeBron James.
Right.
Number 4,
no surprise.
Patrick Mahomes was number 3. John Morant was number 2. And Cage, the number 1 guy by sales value and sales count. That means the most cards sold and those cards valued the most. Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
There you go.
Did I say that name? You guys are sitting there shaking your head because he had a monster game with Lonzo out. He could actually shoot the ball and have it go through the basket, which is a nice added bonus when it comes to basketball. And his cards have shot up. His cards have completely shot up. And, we're sitting here thinking, who's next, right? That's what we all want to know. Who's next? Who's sitting in that bargain bin at home that might be able to pop next? I know I'm not a fortune teller, but I know I have one guy that comes to mind. But, Cage, let me play ping pong and first hit the ball over to you. Is there anyone that's top of mind for you that our Luca Nation should be taking a look at?
I'll let you get into who you think might be next, but I think the more value for our guys is if you just heard Andrew talk about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, SGA's cousin, you'll remember we just talked about him a couple episodes ago. He was one of my plays, but if you remember it, my play was don't buy him now. My play was wait for the pricing to cool down. Don't be the person who jumps all over his eBay and StarStock listings when he drops 37 points. And what this data shows me is there were a lot of people who jumped all over his cards. There are a lot of people who jumped on his cards after he had that 37 point. And you're almost buying him at a high point. I mean, and guys, I'm going to give you the secret to this, something you have never heard before. So we're almost 200 episodes in. We're starting month 7 today. Here is a strategy that, I mean, it's worth its weight in gold, right? And I can't believe no one's ever thought of this before. You probably have never heard this line, but here you go. You ready? Dropping gold now.
Tell us.
You can make money by buying low and selling high. Oh my God, I can't believe no one's ever thought of this before. And conversely, guys, you should try not to buy high and then have to sell low. Oh my God, this is gold, man. Somebody should trademark this one. And obviously I'm joking, but the point has to be made. If you're buying Nickeil Alexander-Walker now, when he had his one shot with no ball and Bledsoe injured and Zion out for a little while, then you are buying high. You are not buying him low presently. And what I like to do with this data is, yes, you're right. And we can talk about who's going to be the next one where you can still buy low, but you're going to see, and if you listen to us, it's our third one of these full detailed StarStock, episodes. We brought you DeAndre Hunter was on the top list last week. Well, he's on the down list this week because people are chasing. And if you chase high and you buy high, that's going to be a disappointment. It's very difficult to ride that weight up for a prolonged period of time. Now, Keldon Johnson has done it, but what did he have? he had a continued opportunity. That was a guy he was increasing because, one, he got a shot in the starting lineup, and then two, he took advantage of it, stayed in the starting lineup, and continued to perform. That's a different scenario. That's one that you're not really chasing. The stars are aligned for someone like him. Whereas Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you're buying him because he had 1 game to start, 2 games to start, but you know that's a temporary thing. So that's a difficult scenario to be buying in the hype now. I would venture to say, I know you're not a fortune teller, but I pretend to be one. I'm like, Zoltar speaks, right? I don't know whether or not you know it. Not Balthazar, Zoltar. Balthazar, what was that from? That was from Bunked, right? That was your
Balthazar is
show.
a baker. Balthazar is a bakery in New York. Actually.
Yes, but he's talking
Delicious
about
breads
a Disney
delivered to your door.
Bunked episode. Mine, Zoltar Speaks. If anybody knows what movie that's from, go ahead and hit us and give us a little. I know what that's from. Zoltar Speaks. But if I'm being Zoltar Speaks, I'm going to say Nickeil Alexander-Walker might be on our decrease list next week. He might be on our down list. He might be one of the guys who has decreased. Just because it's hard to maintain that upper trajectory that he has. So do you have a crystal ball? Do you have a somebody you think who's down a little now, or somebody you think might be on that upswing?
Yep, I have 2 guys, one out of the East, one out of the West. I'm going to start with the West. One of my favorite coaches in the league is Steve Kerr. I think he's actually grossly underrated. What he's able to do with a combination of run a really good offense. They move off the ball. I've brought this up hundreds of times. Super well. Curry, Thompson. I know Thompson's injured, but he's able to coach the game. But he's also a personality manager. And what I think the Warriors are going to do, I think they're going to overperform this season relative to their expectations. Before the season, Klay Thompson got injured, and everyone kind of was like, "The season's over." They started the year. Draymond was injured as well. And now I think they're going to start rounding into form. I think they're going to get better and better and better as the season goes on. They're going to find their identity. They're going to have a set plays that, that are going to work really, really well, and they're going to keep coming back to. And I think Oubre and Wiggins, though their ceiling is a little low, I think that team is going to do well. And the guy I would start looking at, and his cards have come down a little bit, is Wiseman. I still think he's in real contention to get Rookie of the Year. I know LaMelo is clearly the front runner right now, but I think towards the end of the season, it's going to be a conversation. Is it Wiseman or LaMelo? And I think Wiseman's going to round into form. He's getting older. He's getting stronger. I think he's got the most potential in any big man in the league right now in that draft class. And I would take a look at Wiseman's cards. I think he's a good guy to buy right now.
Over $30 around Christmas time, steady over 20 in the last couple weeks, and now he's fallen to like 15. I think the top offers are like $12.50 on him, so he's a nice bounce back candidate. He puts together a couple good games.
Yeah, and I think he's supported and surrounded by really smart players. I think Draymond is absolutely okay to defer points and shots to Wiseman. Wiseman can hit the 3, can play inside, and I think him and Curry are really going to find a pick and roll kind of play that works. And I think Wiseman's going to be a double-double candidate by the end of the year. The second guy I like even more. And this is a team that coming into the season, they had so many changes that you didn't know what to expect. And I think what they found in the last week, even though they've gone through some really tough times, is the Sixers really like Maxey. I think they realized they got a steal with that player, and it's someone that they really need. He can score inside and out. He's a shooter. He's a pure player. Like he's a pure scorer. And that's someone they need, because it's no secret that Ben Simmons can't shoot or doesn't shoot. It's no secret that Danny Green doesn't shoot like the way he used to. And that team just got crushed by COVID. And I think that team is going to be the runaway number 1 seed in the East because of how in sync they're going to be for the remainder of the year. Okay. So they've gone through their COVID scare. They were sitting at top of the conference. I think they lost 3 games, won 1 since that happened. But now they're all going to be rounding back into shape, getting back healthy. And I think Maxey's going to be a bigger part of that offense moving forward than he's been, because he had a little bit of a time to shine while other people were out. And I would take a really good look at Maxey. I think he's a stud. I think he's a good short-term and long-term play. I think he's someone that I would buy up on StarStock, sell him when he inevitably does start putting up, 15, 20 points off the bench, because he's going to get more minutes and because he frankly has the talent to do so. And I would roll that money into maxi cards when the Prism comes out, because I think he's going to be still underpriced relative to LaMelo and Wiseman. And I think he has a ton of upside. And I think he's a player that the Sixers have needed for a long time.
How about Tyrese Halliburton? You know anything about him?
It's tough because it's really tough to watch games out west. And it's even tougher to watch games out west of the Kings team who suck. So, like, I haven't watched any Halliburton. I haven't watched any of the Kings. I think the Kings are kind of a joke of the NBA, honestly.
Okay.
In the sense, they're never on televised games, and they're always starting at 10:30. So you never get a chance to see them play. And there's frankly nothing exciting about that team. So I haven't watched Halliburton. I know we get a ton of messages. Flawless. Please forgive me. Don't be mad at me. Don't send me any more mean DMs about Halliburton. He's good. I'm sure he's good. I haven't seen him play enough, so I can't
watch him play. He's a legit player. He fell in the draft much further than he should have. I think he's a little undersized potentially, but he's a legit player. I like the Wiseman play you're bringing. I do, because it brings a whole bunch of stuff to me. He's a name, so obviously people know him, so the hype train can definitely stay on him. But more importantly, he's seen that run up already. So you've already seen what the potential he has if he's performing, for people to people jump on his cards. I like that, and I've watched him play. He looks legit.
There you guys have it. Another StarStock episode for you guys. We love you.
And as always, if you have any questions on StarStock or anything else, just reach out to us. We're we do what we can on our DMs. We'll get to them all. It might not be immediately, but we'll get to them all. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.